So you asked me, what can we do? This agenda, which is part of the European Spring's New Deal for Europe, creates the circumstances with one press conference, maybe two, maybe three, for changing the climate in Europe. Suddenly, after these announcements, Europe ceases to be in the mind of the taxi driver out there, of the person who doesn't give a damn about us, ceases to be necessarily the source of problems, becomes the source of solutions. First thing, the European Investment Bank is going to issue bonds, as it always does, but this time it will issue bonds to the tune of 500 billion euros every year for 5 years. And that money, which together in 4 years, 5 years will be 2.5 trillion euros, is going to be placed in an agency for planning and implementing green transition, green energy, green transport, research and development into green technologies across Europe. A small aside, there is nothing new in what I've said. The European Investment Bank is issuing bonds. The European Central Bank is buying them. We are not inventing the wheel, but do it at a level of 500 billion every year across Europe to fund the green transition and create the agency that is going to identify the green energy union projects which Germany needs more than any other country in Europe. So suddenly, somebody asked from Brexit land, I believe, the question about unemployment. If you pump 500 billion euros every year, it's 5% of GDP. That's the New Deal of Roosevelt brought to Europe today without even a federal government, without new rules, without new institutions, without a treaty change. Monday morning, everything I said and described is legal. It can happen now. That's the first part of the announcement. It lasts for about 5-6 minutes. We move to the second part. Did you know that last year the European Central Bank made 91 billion euros in profits? There's no sense in a central bank making profits. It's not a private bank, it's not a business. So let's take this money and fund an anti-poverty program across Europe, where poor families receive checks signed by the President of the European Central Bank. Okay, that announcement takes another 4 minutes. Let's move to the third announcement. Public debt, which is the excuse for austerity. Every government imposing austerity in Germany, in Greece, in Italy, everywhere, uses public debt as a great scarecrow. Public debt will sink us. Therefore, we need to cut down austerity. Of course, austerity has never worked in the history of the world and never will, but that's another matter. Public debt is an issue. But think of how easy it is to reduce the Eurozone's public debt by 40% with one press conference, completely legally and within the rules of the European Union. The third announcement goes like this. We are going to take the public debt of every country. And let's do the following. We take the debt of Italy, the debt of Greece, of Ireland, of Germany, of everyone, and to divide it between two parts. The part that we were allowed to have, according to the Maastricht Treaty. I hate the Maastricht Treaty, but let's respect it. Maastricht said you can have debt up to 60% of GDP. Well, let's call this the good debt. And everything above that, in the case of Italy, about 55% of the debt is bad debt, and 45% is the legal good debt. Yeah? So what we do is very simple. The European Central Bank announces what we call, as part of the European Spring Program, a debt conversion project. So what the European Central Bank does, it doesn't print any money, but it mediates between private investors and our states, so that our states can borrow at the interest rates that the European Central Bank charges the bankers. Zero. Huh? Zero. If the debt repayments of our states for the good debt, the interest rate goes to zero, do you know what happens? 40% of the total debt repayments in the Eurozone, in aggregate, for the next 20 years, disappears. We reduced total debt repayments for the next 20 years in the Eurozone altogether by 40% with just that one small administrative policy. The European Central Bank is not paying anything because Italy will pay its debt. But it will pay less for the good debt than for the bad debt. And that is completely legal.